agenda. And the first that we need to talk about is the intergovernmental agreement between Metco and the town of Elkton regarding the Southfield Sportsplex. Do we have Kimberly coming on today, or?
Yeah, she's supposed to be coming on, because I just saw her on the phone. I'm not sure when, but I can go over the initial thing. Essentially, this is an agreement since Medco is issuing the bonds, and they'll have land lease on the property and everything, that they're essentially the owner. And of course, sidelines will develop it, and there's an operator. But because of the town backing these bonds, we take a subordinate role in this process during the construction and during the operational phase of this project. And we can, we'll do inspections, of course, as I normally do, but we also have access to the project itself, through meetings and things of that nature, to comment on budgets and things like that. And probably the most important part of this agreement is the fact that there's defaults by the developer, or the manager, or the operator. That basically the town may be involved in somehow, temporarily at least, operating this facility to some extent. God forbid that happening, but it is provided in that agreement. But Metco plays a dominant role here because they're actually the ones that are funding it. And I was hoping that Kimberly would be on here and get into some of the minutiae of this, but basically that's what it's all about. So the town's already pledged, to back this whole operation. So this is just a formality in terms of how we would participate in the construction and operation of the sportsplex itself.
So Lou and I's been on a couple different calls with Kimberly, and there was nothing out of line with this agreement. And, we'll let's bypass this agreement. If she does come on, we'll bring her back. But let's go to the next item: discussion on the stormwater management update. Mr. Taylor and Mr. Sidney, come on down. It's about our impervious acreage reduction plan.
Really important.
What does? Impervious, I like it. You guys are throwing out the big words on us up here today.
That's right.
And just to clarify that, that's so that any material that water won't go through.
That's right. So basically today, we're just trying to give an introductory kind of summary of what it all entails as far as the MS4 permit. To make long story short and cut that in half, in 2019, the town received their new MS4 permit. I've been working with the MS4 permits since 2007, and typically they required the town to do 6 things, which is education, pollution prevention, mapping, inspections, and so forth. But in 2010, the EPA and MDE decided to create something called the Watershed Implementation Plan. Now, I've presented before you all at some point in time about this Watershed Implementation Plan, which is basically bringing the health of the Chesapeake Bay up. At the time they initiated this, it was a D-, I believe. So what Maryland, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York, Virginia, states that are all the wrong side of the Chesapeake Bay, they decided to come with a program that municipalities that have permits, they have to do a series of things. They have to do a series of restoration activities to bring this grade up. Now, this restoration activity initiative was a side project to the stormwater permits that they gave municipalities. So this was like an additional thing. But in 2019, when the old permit expired and the new permit was issued, they modified the side project and put it into our MS4 permit, making sure that municipalities do it, and it's not just a, you do it if you can, you do it if you want to thing. So that's where we are. So in 2019, they said, come up with a plan. And that plan would be the restoration activity schedule. Every municipality within the state of Maryland that has a permit has to have a restoration activity schedule. Before 2019, in Cecil County, it was only Cecil County and Elkton that had an MS4 permit. What MDE decided to do, they decided to broaden the scope of restoration activity by giving permits to smaller municipalities like Northeast, Rising Sun, and Perryville. So all of the municipalities in Cecil County have to have a restoration activity schedule, which is basically doing a series of things to increase the health of the Chesapeake Bay. That's a lot of information that I'm scaling down. But as of 2023, the health of the Chesapeake Bay exceeded their expectations and had a grade of maybe C+. So what MDE decided to do is, instead of creating a series of things for municipalities to do, we're gonna broaden it to reducing the impervious areas of these municipalities, which will catch all of the reduction activities they had in the WIP. Hopefully you all follow. It's a lot of information. So that's where we're at now. And I'm gonna say RAS a lot, but that's what this reduction activity schedule is. And what MDE wants, they want municipalities to fulfill this schedule or fulfill these series of things to bring the Chesapeake Bay up by 2025. So I've been reporting to MDE since 2007. And in 2019, by adding this new initiative with the impervious thing, they said, well, listen, we want all municipalities to give us a schedule, and we want you to provide information based on the schedule every year of this permit. So from 2019 to now, which is 2025, they wanted to see progress with this reduction activity or restoration activity schedule. So
this schedule was time and place.
yes,
Okay.
they to kind of keep municipalities in check or kind of keep them on their toes, they wanted to have progress reports. So for the town of Elkton, we have achieved several of the projects on our restoration activity schedule, but now we're approaching the part of our schedule where the projects are larger and they require serious funding. So 4 of those projects are pond restorations, which is basically taking a pond that was made maybe in the 70s or the 80s, which is basically just, hey, we're gonna put a bowl here, we're gonna send all the water in development to this place, and that's where it's gonna be. To retrofit that pond, and James knows a lot more about it than I do, it's more based on the quality of the water leaving that area or leaving that site. Am I close?
Yeah, so basically, when stormwater facilities were designed decades ago, they were mostly focused on the quantity, so the amount of water that was coming. So as a subdivision got built, they had a large stormwater facility that caught all the water for the impervious that was being added, that would hold it and then slow release it. What they found was that those stormwater facilities were not actually improving the water quality that was being discharged. It was just managing the amount. So now MDE looks at both quantity and the quality measurements to make sure that it's not just the amount of water that's going into it, but also, or not just the amount of water that it's holding, but also how are we cleaning that water up before it's discharging into the Chesapeake Bay, which is we've seen that increase going from that D to that C, and how that water quality is improving. So, yeah, so we've gone through, we've worked with Dan and with Sydney on a number of different applications that could be that could be implemented. The one thing I will say is MDE has been super pleased every year with the audit. When we meet with MDE after the report gets submitted, they're very pleased with the progress that's been made and the plan that is out there of things that could be done. But as Sydney mentioned, we need to start looking at how do we implement these other elements. Sydney, do you want to talk a little bit about this here?
So, working with James, like I said, in 2019, we put together this restoration activity schedule. And with James's help, Redantis, we found that the town had 55 total acres, 5,500 total acres in the jurisdiction. And of those 5,500 acres, there's 970 acres of impervious coverage. That's your concrete, that's your buildings, that's your roofs, that's your asphalts, that's your streets. That's all those things. So of that 970 acres, the Maryland Department of the Environment is requiring that each municipality reduce 20% of that. So that's 20% of our 970, which equals to 194 acres. So, like I mentioned before with the WIP, the series of things that municipalities have to do, like rain gardens, like the rain gardens on Howard Street, retrofitting ponds, bioretention, putting more pond trees, and all types of, there's hundreds of things you can do. By doing those things, you would reduce the amount of impervious acres to pervious. So with James and Redantis, we've come up with a schedule. If we fulfill everything in the schedule, the town of Elkton, when it's complete, will have restored 359 acres. So I did a little math, a little off, but I think it's about 165 acres over what the state is requiring us to do.
Is there a reason for
The biggest reason right now is just to give the town options for things that could be done. Right,
Okay.
and Sydney's gonna probably get into this a little bit, but he mentioned it was a 6-year permit, which puts that in 2025. We're now at the tail end of that permit, and in early discussions with MDE, they're going to be doing stuff to increase that. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so the next where we're at, we ended our permit last year at the end of October of 2024, and we're in good standing. We're still in good standing with MDE, but the next permit term, they're saying that we're going to even increase the amount that we want municipalities to reduce by an additional 10%. So the 20% that they wanted us to do by 2025, they've now added 10%. So I did the math, I think. 30% of the 970 would be 291 acres that the town would be required to restore. But if we fulfill the things that we have on our schedule as it stands, we're still over the required amount of restoration acreage.
How do you feel about being able to fulfill all that?
That's why we're here today, because it's going to require a lot of funding.
Can I answer?
Why are you looking at me?
So, quick question. And how does Southfields figure into this? And also the potential of the recreational area, would that figure into that data as well? Or is it already figured in?
So everything that is new development, since I believe it was 2012, I believe, I can't remember the exact year, but essentially there's a year that was established that anything after that date, you don't get credit for new development. So Southfields would not get credit because they're required already to meet the quality and the quantity requirements that NDE has set forth.
So are they putting in wet ponds now?
I don't think so. I think we have one. But I'm not sure. No, what we're getting is micro bioretention, a lot of bioretention, a lot of infiltration, environmentally themed practices for stormwater.
Yeah, so this is what a bioretention facility looks like. It's got that biomedia, same thing as what's down there over on Howard Street. Essentially, it's got a biomedia section, and what it is that's a makeup of soil, organics, stuff to filter out the sediment and the other items associated with contaminants that would get into the Chesapeake Bay. This one here actually shows underdrain, which is something that could be done when you don't have infiltration capabilities. You can't just get water into the ground naturally. You put an underdrain in, so the water filters through that biomedia, goes into the underdrain, and then gets discharged. That's exactly how the one over on Howard Street is set up, is water from that parking lot at the farmer's market kind of goes into that. It filters through, goes into the underdrain, and then discharges out. So there are a lot of different ways now that people are meeting quality requirements. The one piece that is a lot of these dry ponds. So a lot of these facilities have dry ponds. That's really something that was managed to do the quantity, not the quality. So the wet pond, the difference in that is the water stays at a ponding level. It allows for sediment and pollutions to filter out as water comes in. You normally have a forebay in there where basically as the water comes in from the pipe, it sits in that forebay where it allows a lot of that sediment to collect and then overflows into the wet pond. So as Cindy mentioned, we went through and identified a number of different facilities that could be looked at. Those include, that could go from the dry to wet retrofit, which would be the South Tartan Drive stormwater facility. That treats approximately 32 acres. Your Grace Hill Pond treats approximately 11.5 acres of impervious. And then 2 in Kensington Courts, one being off the Whitehall Road, does 12 acres, and then the one off the Lovell Court does 3 acres. And there's some things that need to be cleaned up with these as they are. The bigger piece and this kind of ties back to the previous conversations that we had regarding the drainage assessment, is related to the Big Elk Creek. And what MDE allows is for stream restoration, you get credit towards your impervious coverage because you're stabilizing, and there's a calculation that they run. So that's the other pieces that have been included in here is those 3 areas that were discussed as part of that drainage study, which was from East Main Street to the Amtrak Bridge, the area 2 being East Meadow Park to Main Street, and then Marina Park to Meadow Park, and stabilizing those areas. In discussion with MDE, because we did share this with them over the summer as we were still finalizing things, MDE's thought was it's better to look at a regional approach, which would be the Big Elk Creek, versus doing these isolated pockets. And the same thing with the amount of credit that you get, you're going to get more bang for your buck by doing these items with the creek versus doing the smaller retrofits. The smaller retrofits are good, and we can do a combination to meet the requirement. But if there's things that you have to clean up already, or things that you want to address with flooding, it's better to pair those together. So you're killing 2 birds with 1 stone by getting the credit versus other things of going through. The other piece of it is with converting facilities from dry to wet, or even if you wanted to find a way to introduce like a bioretention facility to treat the quality, there's not really many funding opportunities that you can go out and get for that. With the Big Elk Creek, there are a number of funding opportunities that are out there, depending upon how we look at it, whether it's a FEMA grant, whether it's there's some EPA grants out there that deal with climate and environmental justice and those types of things. So there's a number of these projects that are things that are out there. Now, right now with funding from the federal government, everything's a little bit up in the air, but there will still be funding at some point, moving forward. It's just trying to make sure that all those pieces are in line. So there's a lot of different options out there for the town. It's working on determining what's the best, and then also, budgeting for some of that. A lot of the grants and the funding opportunities that are out there, a lot of times they want to have a certain amount of design done before, so that you can get a construction grant.
Mhm.
Construction is gonna be the largest cost of a lot of these things, right? It's not the design, it's not the design. Design is a small portion of it. It's the construction that's what costs. And so, making sure that we're looking at that, is kind of what we want to just bring to the attention.
I'd say that we've been talking about this and the mayor and commissioners way before us. We want to do the flood control project along with the MS4. I mean, that would be our definite direction. And I think if we could stabilize that stream bed from point A to point B, that's going to give us a lot of acreage. And it'll serve as a protection for the downtown businesses. So how do we do this? What do we do? I think we're working on those steps right now.
Yeah, I mean, the next pieces are, I know, working with Dan and Sydney on some initial proposals that we talked about the last time of getting some of those areas dredged right off the bat. But also the next piece is putting together those proposals for what it's going to take to get design done for those opportunities. So that's something that we can absolutely work on with Sydney and Dan and present before the board.
I actually think in our next meeting, is it the 19th or is it the March meeting? We've got Owen McElroy coming in. He's a lobbyist that wants to help us find funding.
Great.
And this was one of the projects that he was talking about, or that I've talked to him about.
Fantastic.
I think it's I'm always thinking it's next Wednesday he's coming in here to meet the board.
It's March 19th.
March 19th?
Another month.
We've got another month. Well, listen, I think you've opened up our eyes to it. We know what we have to do. And I think that if we can maybe do some of the small projects in-house, that would be great. But I think the big plan is to do the flood control project with the stabilization. You guys all on board with
I
that?
am.
Yeah, I am.
Yes.
I mean, what's the maintenance between the dry and the wet?
From a maintenance perspective,
From a maintenance perspective, there's less. There's less to do technically, but there's more risk with the wet pond. If that makes sense. Depending on the water levels and the water level of the pond, but a dry pond, they can drive through there, they can run through there, depending on the slopes of the wet pond.
I'm not personally comfortable in turning the dry and the wet if we don't have to. Because I just figured we're creating more maintenance and mosquito.
so as far as the maintenance goes, with the dry, you're talking about you're able to drive your mowers right in there and clean it up.
Keep it clean.
Yeah, the wet, you're more talking about the exteriors of the pond. So you're not
Right.
looking at the full, facility. You're only really looking at the edges. But you're correct that there are there's different things in regards to the wet versus dry in terms of maintenance. And that's why I wanted to bring up the bioretentions as other options. But with that, then it's trying to figure out, okay, where's the locations to put those? Because now you're adding a stormwater facility versus retrofitting a facility. So it's taking town land that might be used for something else and trying to add something onto it. So that's the pieces that we kind of have to continue to wiggle through. But, hearing the direction, if it's, hey, we want to keep moving forward on the stuff related to the creek, that makes a lot of sense. And, Jean has a question.
She's unmuted.
Go ahead, Jean.
Yes. So James, how does this project interface with the initial project that I've already sent in requesting funding for, which is the first portion of that flood study that Verdantis did, the phase 1 or part 1, however it was described, where we're looking at that the area to the north of Red Hill, the bridge at Red Hill Road.
Yeah, they interact with each other. So if we've already submitted for funding for that, then that's the first step.
I thought that Gina was aware of that. If not, I can send you the grant application that I've sent in. We won't hear for a while from that,
Yeah.
but I did send in for that first part for the section of land from, I guess, the old railroad bed to Red Hill Road.
Great.
that section off of Far Creek.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So, yeah, I mean, that's definitely part of it. You know, one thing that we're also explore is there's a lot of sediment already in that area, and typically, you know, so street sweeping that the town does, you get credit for towards MS4 permit for reducing impervious coverage by doing that. The same it goes with when you clean up catch basins, you get all this stuff out of there. Same thing with dredging. If you're removing materials from the creek, you get credit for that volume. So we just got to figure out how to calculate that volume credit. But yeah, there's a lot out there related to the creek that can be helpful with that.
Very good. I think we know what direction we need to go. Any other questions for these guys? James, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Sydney,
Good to
thank
meet
you.
Thanks, guys.
Kimberly, we see that you're online. Can we unmute Kimberly?
All
Hi,
right,
Kimberly. How are you doing?
you're gonna see me too. How's everybody doing?
Hey, we get to see you. We are doing great. We actually went through briefly the agreement with Medco.
Mhm.
I think we feel pretty comfortable with everything, but if there's any high points that you need to touch with the board, whatever you
Sure,
feel like you want to do.
sure, absolutely. And apologies for the confusion on the timing. So this is a very common agreement structure between Medco and any government that it's, helping with on a project that's within its jurisdiction. As we know, Medco, as the technical quote owner of the project for the purposes of financing, recognizes that the town has specific interests as it relates to, how the project is getting managed, how the project is getting developed. And so the primary purpose of this agreement is to keep those lines of communication open between the town and Medco, so that Medco understands that if the town has a question or concern, that Medco will be communicating to the town on that. So the reason for an actual agreement, because you would hope people would just talk to each other and that's not a contract that we need, is that there are some remedies that the town negotiated for and has in this Sportsplex deal that we wanted to make sure Medco and the town understood how that process would work if things weren't going as expected and we needed to sort of adjust how things are managed down the road. So that's the theme behind the agreement. When we were in the process of drafting that, we, and Lewis was very good at sort of clarifying this. We made sure that any sort of limitations on the town's, rights didn't at all affect whatever the town's rights are as it relates to the actual inspection and, construction of the project of the town as a permitting jurisdiction. So you didn't sort of give up any of your sort of sovereign sort of rights as to any development that's located within your boundaries. So we made that part perfectly clear. And then, if there is a replacement manager or a replacement developer, there would be a say that you have in that discussion. And so, we want to make sure that you are getting the information that you need, that you're being afforded the opportunity to communicate your preferences on any type of changes that need to happen with the project. And then the final thing is should the project be as successful as everybody hopes, because Medco owns the property as a state agency, it's not subject to real property taxation. So what we want to make sure is if it is successful, then we need to think about, what the town's responsibilities are as far as, having a property within its jurisdiction that might, sort of require some town services. And so if the budget allows for it, this gives the town the opportunity, because remember, this is going to be around for a long time, to request and get sort of compensation if there are any services, because Medco isn't otherwise paying taxes. So it's only, it's not going to threaten the budget of the project. It's only if the budget is available. But this does give the town some opportunity to sort of cover any expenses that it might incur in delivering the town services. And I think if this is successful and that would be a conversation that comes up, I think everybody would be very happy to be having that conversation. So those are the primary themes. I know I went through those rather quickly, so if there were any questions that came up, I'm also happy to answer those. But we feel comfortable with where the town and Medco have landed on this agreement and think that it does a lot to keep the town involved to the extent, you know, it should be involved on this as a sponsoring entity.
Thank you, Kimberly. Does anyone on the board have any questions for Kimberly?
No, but I appreciate all of your counsel.
Always happy to help. That's what I'm here for.
Thank you, Kimberly.
All right. Be well, everyone.
All right, thank you.
Groundbreaking's next, right? That's
Next, soon.
yes, next.
Soon.
Yeah.
We'll have you down here. You're coming down, right?
Oh, absolutely.
All
If
right.
I'm down, I will be there. Okay.
Perfect.
All right.
Thank you.
Take care.
Okay, next up, we have a request from the Elkton Alliance. Come on down. Tell us what you got going. Use the Howard Street parking lot at Farmers Market Pavilion for the Diamond State Steel Academy event. What do we have going on?
We have historical educational bios.
So I want to thank you for allowing us to be here today. And before we get started, Mr. Roger Young is passing around a proposal and some additional information that supports the reason for our agenda item today.
Thank you.
Diamond State Steel Academy, and Roger is the owner of that, and they have approached us. They originally approached us with an idea of doing an event outside downtown in Elkton, and we were originally talking about Main Street, North Street, and closing the streets like we sometimes do. And as the more we talked about it, I said, you know, maybe there's a better opportunity because sometimes that disrupts businesses and things like that. And we have the parking lots behind on Howard Street in the farmers market that we have used for Fall Fest and some other things. And so I said, well, let's explore that option first. And to explore that option, that needs to come before all of you for approval and discussion and questions and things like that. So before we get into you guys asking questions, I want to ask Roger to give a little insight to the organization, the events that they do, the purpose of the event, and the overall goals.
Hello, everyone. I'm Roger Young. I am the executive director for Armored AF Foundation and Pro Fight Series and owner of Diamond State Steel Academy. We do full speed, full contact, steel weapons and steel armor, mixed martial arts. Our art is based on 14th and 15th century tournaments, historically accurate. The armor we use must also be historically accurate. We have authenticity committees that review your armor and make sure you meet that. There's the educational part of it. The fitness part is, well, yeah, you're putting on about 80 pounds of armor and you're fighting for 2 minutes if we're doing, depending on what we're doing. We have worked with the city of Perryville for the last 4 years. We've been doing events in the Perryville Park, have a very good working relationship with them. We have raised over $10,000 in our nonprofit and charity partnerships over the last several years that we've been doing this Pro Fight Series. We just hosted one at Singularly Fire Hall several weeks ago that was well attended. What we are intending to bring to this event is the American Duelist. We're going to invite 8 to 10 internationally ranked and United States ranked people that fight sword and shield and longsword. These competitors take it very seriously. They are competing in 2 world tournaments, one in July in Hungary and one in August in Houston. So being a gold medalist is much like being on the Olympics. We're also bringing several other organizations in that are going to do demos, Guarda Martial Arts, local to Elkton, Kobukan Kodudo, Mixed Martial Arts, the Duelist Academy and actually Olympic Style Fencing Academy that is located within Elkton. Equity Fitness, Barrick is going to come do some CrossFit. Faithful Fitness, he's going to come do some boxing. Big Joe's Combat Cardio. Our sponsor, Diamond State Iron, is going to come and do some deadlifting and powerlifting. We also have several food vendors, Crave Eatery, Just Winging It, and celebrity chef Robbie Jester. Double Tap Entertainment is going to be doing DJing. We will have a live feed. Various other vendors, probably a full afternoon of family entertainment.
What time do you expect the event to run?
I would like to run from like 1 to 5, something like that.
Would you be in the, underneath the farmer's market, or would you be out in the grass over on the Eder Park side?
No, in the parking lot.
In the
In the
parking lot
parking
behind
lot.
Howard Street.
We're going to utilize the farmer's market, the shaded area for the guys that are competing to have shade to rest and relax in.
Does the guys ever get hurt?
Yes, it is a contact sport.
Mm-hmm.
I got hurt in singlet when I was fighting.
That's because, yeah, well. We just, to give you a brief example, we just had one of the largest tournaments in the world the first weekend in February in Clemson, South Carolina, Carnage. We had 750 competitors, 8 countries represented, 18 injuries. Only one required hospitalization, and that was a torn hamstring. Abrasions, bumps, bruises, those things are just part of the sport.
Mm-hmm.
We actually have a safer record than hockey or football.
Understand.
Who covers the liability for things like that?
I have a liability policy of my own under Diamond State Steel Academy. American Medieval Combat Federation also does a liability policy covering that specifically the combat. Mine is a 3.2 million, and I believe AMCF is a $2.5 million liability policy.
These competitions are open for viewing by all ages.
Oh, absolutely. We encourage families. The kids have a blast. The competitors are just love to hang out with the kids. It's, you get to hang out with real knights in shining armor. Or sunshine.
I think it's kind of exciting, quite frankly, to see something like that. The board have any questions, comments?
The town should be named as additionally insured on their policy.
I have no problem doing that. I will provide a certificate of insurance naming the town as an official insured on that.
I would say let's put it on the agenda for next meeting and we'll take action.
Are you then planning to do it in the large open parking lot across from the farmer's market?
Yeah, where we
Yes.
had fall fest vendors the last 2 years.
How's the condition for what you're gonna do?
Oh, it's fine. If we are fighting on asphalt or pavement or cement or marble floors or whatever, we use basically horse stall mats, 4 foot by 6 foot, 3/4 inch mats. Those are placed on the ground. And then our ring is placed on that to prevent injury to the fighters and damage to the ground.
So there is a confined area that they stay in?
Yes, there is. This will be more than likely a 16 by 24 foot square list ring made out of 4x4s.
Can you talk a little bit about the support for the nonprofits? For this
Oh,
specific
yes.
event?
So this is that, like I said, we always partner with nonprofit or charities. This is that we're partnering with Elkton Alliance, and yes. We worked with Beth on a number of events. She actually sent a letter. She apologized. She was
How
going
are
to be
the
here today.
events rated? How do you win? You have 2 combatants, who wins? The one that stands up when the other falls down, or what?
No, this is a duelist competition. There are 3 types of combat that we do. We do the pro fight. Think UFC. It is in an octagon. It is punching, kicking, throwing, knees, et cetera, et cetera. That is scored on a 10-point must system. Then we do group fights, melees, 5 versus 5, 12 versus 12. Those are won when your opponent touches the ground. Once an opponent touches the ground, they're done. This is the duelist competition. These are scored by 4 certified judges. It's extremely technical. They score shots that are of sufficient force, that are struck edge on with the sword. So it's very dynamic, very technical. The competitors we're bringing in are the best in the world.
Since
Where's
it's,
everybody park?
huh?
A lot of people.
Parking would be probably similar to
What we do for Fall Fest.
for Fall Fest.
Okay, I was gonna say, because if you use the parking facilities, then.
Yeah, we use the parking facilities for vendors at Fall Fest, so.
So will there be general seating, standing, or what have you? And the reason why I ask that, because as I look on your display, here, it says tickets are VIP, for VIP 50 and general admission is $25. So obviously they have to be separated by something because of price.
Right. That flyer is for an upcoming event. That is March 29th. I included that because I would like to invite everybody here as my guest to come and attend the event. That way you'll see what we really do. This is going to be a festival environment. There will be no tickets sold. The funding will all come from sponsorships.
Very nice.
Wouldn't it be nice if we could do that in the Armory?
Mayor?
Soon, soon.
So I know you mentioned a future meeting. Will this be on your agenda for next week's meeting?
Yeah, Michelle, put this on the agenda for next meeting.
Okay,
We'll take
I'm out
action.
of town in Baltimore for training for the Alliance next Wednesday, but if
Be
you
here
would
next
like,
Wednesday.
that way if there's any additional
Do you
questions.
guys have, unless something crazy comes up, are we good with it? We'll be good with it.
Yeah, I don't think.
We're gonna be good. with
And it's the
it.
week before Fall Fest, just for my timing.
Yes, I think we're gonna be fine. So if
Yeah.
you wanna come in, you're welcome to, but if you don't want to, you're
Oh,
fine.
no, I'll be here.
All right,
Absolutely.
perfect.
And you'll receive for the town administrator, you'll receive a copy of the COE approximately 2 weeks before the event,
Perfect.
which you guys named as on the COI.
I don't see any name or email address on here, it says. You know, I was gonna say, how do you communicate with them?
Very top, Diamond State Steel Academy, the
Yeah,
phone
I
number,
see this.
and our office in Elkton.
Well, thank you, guys.
Thank you. Look, I'm really excited to get this
All right.
done in Elkton.
Thank you so much. All right. Well, listen, this is the time we're gonna open up the floor for whoever's here. Come on down if you want to speak to the board today. Yeah, come on down and state your name and address if you'd like. I'm assuming that's why you're here.
Yeah, well, somewhat, I'm not new to the neighborhood. I've lived in Elkton since '09. My name is David Finley.
Oh,
David.
okay.
You can have a seat.
Good to have a space.
Recently, I've seen a lot of posts on Facebook about the
Just,
cost
And Dave,
of
what's your address, please?
220 Park Circle.
okay.
Thank you.
And I suggested that people actually come out here and kind of find out why, and instead of just complaining about it. So that's why I'm here. I seen from what I read back in '01, it was actually mentioned that there were some issues with the water treatment plant, and that it was in need of repair, and nothing was done with it back then. So now it's kind of, I guess, barreling downhill, and that's the cause of the recent costs. And I'm not sure.
Yeah.
So I'm here. I'm going to attend a few meetings and listen
Yes.
and watch all of you all and just try to gather my own information, my own thoughts. And that's what I'm here for.
Well, I'll give you the Reader's Digest version, the best I can for you.
Okay.
So and Lou has been the staple here for 50 years, so he can interject at any point that he wants to add in when it comes to water and sewer, but I'm gonna give you my best shot at it. So water rates and sewer rates, I can tell you, kill every one of us up here, and it's terrible for our residents, the rates that we have.
It is. I actually came from Parkville, and moving up here in '09 in Parkville, my water bill in Parkville was like $55. Right, I was a single dad, 3 daughters at the time, and got married, moved up here, had a 4th daughter, and my water bill went from 4 of us, 5 of us, from $55, the highest it ever been at Parkville. Or at one point, almost $300.
Wow.
That's just, and
Well-
I don't know what happened here, prior to me coming, but,
Yeah, so so I'm gonna give you, so I wanna give you the larger picture is that our rates, crazy as it sounds, are still one of the lowest in the state of Maryland.
really.
And they are, and we can provide that data for you to take a look at. Definitely here in the county. Now, going back to 2016 or 2017, we did on occasion, we'll do an annual study, a water sewer study, and it brings in the professionals, and they come in and they bring you data, and they tell you, okay, here's where your rate should be. And probably to our fault, the town's fault, we didn't go along with their recommendations. We had quite a bit of money in the reserve fund, water reserve fund, as well as in the sewer reserve fund. And in 2016, we actually cut the water rates here in Elkton by 15%. In 2018, we actually cut the water or the sewer, the wastewater, by 15%. Now, the study was telling us to do this, and we actually cut them back. We did another study in 22, was the latest one in 2022?
I don't know,
It was an upgrade.
It wasn't on the agenda.
They upgraded the study, and they gave us some numbers that we had to go. Now, I can tell you that our water and sewer fund was going down because we were subsidizing it with the amount of dollars that we had. And that was one of the reasons why we wanted to bring it down. We weren't using that water fund or that sewer fund, and we felt, hey, we got to give it back to our residents. Why we don't have any plans for it. Now, a couple of things along the way has happened. We pull about 30% of our water from Artesian. That's out of Delaware. We have an interconnect with them. And the town of Elkton, we pull our water probably 33 or 34% through the Big Elk Creek, probably 35, 36% from groundwater from wells. And then we pull the remainder from Artesian as an interconnect. And that came into play around 2002. Anytime your municipality is over 10,000 people, you have to have an interconnect. You have to be able to provide a backup source of 30% for your residents, just in case, like we had earlier this year. I don't know if you had the bad water. Did you have a smell in your house at all on the water?
I did not, but I tell you what I did see, all right? I seen the guys probably about 8:30 at night turn the fire hydrants
Flushing them
outside and test for pressure. There was literally a river down my road, probably 3 or 4 inches. They let the water run for about 20, 30 minutes out there. And I thought, wow, and my water's going up.
Yeah, well, we have,
rid particulates in the system.
yeah, we have to flush it. You have to do a flush.
Yeah, I understand that.
It'd be great to capture it some way, but you do have to do a flush. So we had, I'm trying to think of the actual words. I remembered it there when we were going through it earlier in the year. But we had some algae. We had real hot temperatures last year, early in the spring. And we actually had to shut our water plant down for a period of time. And we had to pull more water from Artesian. That didn't adjust the rates any at all. But what the bottom line is, what we pull from Artesian at 30%, we have to bill for what we're getting charged from Artesian. So we're
Makes sense.
yeah. So for the last 6 or 7 years, we were billing less than what we were getting the rate from Artesian. So we're in line now. I feel that there won't be another, well, I can't say that. We just got another increase from Artesian, another rate increase, but I think that that's something that we're going to try our best to swallow.
Pardon me, just questioning,
Yeah.
I spent most of my time as an analyst.
Yes.
And I always got 3 different quotes, at least minimal, all right? Is there any other water sources out there besides Artesian?
There's
The
United.
only other water we could use is United, but the cost of they wouldn't tie into us. That's why we, couldn't use, you know.
And they're coming in from PA, United, was it?
No, they were Delaware, but they wouldn't tie in with us, only Artesian.
Why not? Was it
I
not
think
worth their while?
It was a business decision by that company, and they don't divulge that to us.
How long ago was it? Maybe?
Oh my God, years ago.
But we could,
I mean,
listen, you got a very valid point.
Yeah,
We had a group in here from Hartford County. What was the Hartford County?
American, wasn't it?
American Water
Yeah.
came in and they're very anxious. Now, they want to actually acquire our system. They would love to, they'd love to buy the water in the sewer system from the town of Elkton. And I would tell you, if that happens, it would probably increase the cost. But I would also say, out of all the things that we do up here, the worst thing that we hate to deal with is water and sewer, because none of us want to pay that amount of dollars.
and I totally understand. Like I said, I'm here just to.
I appreciate you coming, and now in our water bill, or I was gonna say our utility bill, it has the water rate, the sewer rate, and it has the save the day fee, and it also has the trash fee. And one of the things, our trash fee went up, very high.
I was gonna say, the cost from the people that we're doing business with.
That's really what has thrown that utility bill number
Yes.
out of whack, and I will tell you that, when we put it out on bid, we had, 3 vendors. But our vendor that had our business for, I don't know, 6, 7, 8, 10 years, Waste Management wouldn't even bid, because we had them in a contract that the pricing was so low, and they knew where it was gonna have to be. We sat in a room before we put it out on bid, and their numbers were higher to make that adjustment. So we put it out on a closed bid, and I would say that we took the vendor that we felt that would service the town the best, be able to provide a recycling bin and a trash bin for us. But it was not an easy decision. It was not.
Decisions like that involving money never are.
Yeah, very difficult, but we welcome you coming in,
Thank you.
and I really
It's
appreciate
very nice
that.
to meet
Now,
all of you, and again, like I said, I'll probably continue to make as many trips up here.
absolutely.
And just to listen here.
Listen, we might get you involved in this up here. Come on now.
I'm interested.
Well, listen, I have an opening on the Board of Appeals right now. We could really use someone that lives in the town to be on the Board of Appeals.
Okay,
You've got,
I'm interested.
very good. Michelle, can you get this gentleman,
Thank you for coming in. I think I'm the one that connected with you a little bit.
Thank you. It was very nice being here,
And I will
like
tell you,
said,
that's
I
our
look
biggest
forward to-
our biggest challenge is we can't get people to volunteer and look at our meeting.
I seen that.
And,
And I was actually hoping that there'd be more people here.
and if you come, now we have the first Wednesday of each month is at 6 o'clock.
Right.
And, you're gonna get the same participation.
Really, even though it's later in the day, because I thought maybe that might have had something to do with it, because it's being noon on a weekday, that sort of thing.
We
but-
did this during COVID. We started the noon meetings because everyone was home. And we found out that it was better to have staff here if there was any questions, but we went back. Our charter says that we have to meet once a month, and we meet 3 times a month. But we meet once a month, which is a business meeting, and that's the first Wednesday of each month
Okay,
at 6 o'clock.
the first Wednesday is 6.
First Monday at 6
And then,
o'clock. And
after that, it's,
then it's at noon on the second and third Wednesday.
Mhm.
And if you want to be on the Board of Appeals, you're going to be, that's the third Thursday, I think, of each month.
third Thursday.
Third Thursdays, and it would be at 6 o'clock.
Volunteer.
At the end of the year, you do get a free meal, and it gets you involved in politics. It'll get you involved in seeing what we're doing.
Do you feel like your questions were answered?
I'm sorry,
Do
ma'am?
you feel like your questions were answered, the ones?
Yeah,
That you
and
came
for
in
the
with?
most part, like I said, I wanna hear a little bit more,
Yeah.
listen a little bit more, feel things, and,
Best way.
yeah,
That's the best way.
exactly.
And you actually have two neighbors up here on the board, you know.
Oh, really?
You do.
So Gene lives on Cecil and so does Rob.
Okay.
So they're right around the corner from you.
I grew up in the Heights.
And on the planning commission, Ed Ginter lives on, what's
Hunter.
Hunter,
Okay.
right off of Park.
Well, we're all neighbors.
Almost.
Yeah.
Except us three. Well, thank you so much.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you for your
And
time.
is that your wife back
That
there?
is my wife, yes.
Hi, thank you for coming.
I'm glad I was able to make it. I was off school today, so.
There we go. Thank you.
Thank you.
Angelo Jobbies, you have something to say up there, I think.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon. How you doing? Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
All right. I have been asked by MRDC down in Hollingsworth Manor. They have an issue with their emergency evacuation plan. Their last emergency evacuation plan, they had to have someplace to be able to take the children in case they have to evacuate the school. Last time they had their plan, it was the Presbyterian Church on East Main Street. Getting the kids, what is it, 1.5 miles from Hollingsworth Manor to the Presbyterian Church, that wasn't going to work anymore. And they're trying to find another location to be able to use on paper to be able to submit their emergency evacuation plan. I've already tried some of the businesses, including Wawa. The jail I thought would be ideal because it's right across the street, but the jail said they have no way of being able to house 30 to 40 children. And I was thinking, well, if we have a structure down at the wastewater treatment plant or Elk Landing, because I think that building that was reconstructed, not the main house, but that first floor is like a schoolroom. It was built like a schoolroom, if I remember right. Would it be possible for MRDC to use one of those places to put in their emergency evacuation plan so they could submit it to the state as required? Their last plan expired January 1st, and they've been scrambling to see if they can get someplace. So I offered to come to the town meeting, and I apologize for not being there, but I thought this was just as good, almost.
Well, my knee-jerk reaction would be that Elk Landing probably won't work for them because that's under lease with the Elk Landing Association. We'd have to work that out. But is it too far for them to use the community center?
I think they wanted someplace closer so that the children could walk to it. They could walk the children to a facility close by.
Oh, wow.
But I can ask them that too. I think they were wanting to stay, someplace feasible where they could walk the children to.
You know, there is an unoccupied building right on Landing Lane, right outside of Hollingsworth Manor with a market. Was it?
Yeah, the old Badges Market.
I wonder I'm not sure if anyone plans to occupy that and utilize that building, but I'm not sure who the owner is. That might be an idea.
I couldn't find who the owner was for that, and I thought it was up for sale, but I haven't seen any for sale signs on it yet. But because it was all boarded up, I didn't even think to ask about that one.
He needs facilities, right?
Yeah.
Restrooms.
Well, you would need a restroom. You would need something. So I don't know what the direction would be. Let's give that some thought, Angelo.
I would appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. And listen, when the official request comes in, make sure you tell that director of the MRDC, we want her in here asking for herself.
I'll pass it on.
You pass it on to the mayor of Denton. She's the mayor of Denton, Abby McLinch. She's a very good friend of mine. So you can let her know I want her to be in person here to ask.
I'll pass that on to her.
In jest, of course.
Is there an office?
So in the meantime, what are the age group of the children? And you said it's about 40?
Yes, sir. About 40 students. And of course, this is all just to be on paper. They, knock on wood, they haven't had any reasons to have to evacuate anybody to anywhere since, they haven't. So it's simply something that has to be on paper for the state.
Angelo, are any of these children special needs children, disabilities or things like that, or in terms of mobility and things of that nature?
I don't believe so, but I can't answer that. I don't think so.
Well, you're gonna ask the question if they can drive to it, and we're gonna, put our minds together here.
I appreciate thank you for working that with me. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, Ford, Rob, you have anything to say?
Are we still good with meeting, on the first Wednesday at 6 o'clock, or have you guys ever thought about going back? Somebody brought it up last time, like, doesn't seem to make a difference.
I think we have to have an evening meeting.
I think we have to have one.
Yeah.
I thought I'd bring it up, because I'm good with it, the way it is.
Anything, Charles?
No, other than the fact that I stick with the evening meeting because you're at least given the opportunity for the public to come at a different time because everybody can't come to the noon meeting. You know, that's it.
Are we still doing interviews next week?
Yep, so,
How does that work?
the interview process, I met with Andy, if anyone wants to go in there and talk to Andy, next Wednesday, when the, process starts, he has a book for all of us, that's laid out pretty good, that will have all the information in it about each candidate that we'll have here. It has, I'm gonna tell you, questions we can ask and questions that we can't ask for our guidance. And then we'll just have to determine whether we're gonna fire the questions or we want maybe him to ask the questions and then we do follow-up questions, but it's pretty well.
But can we all be here?
Yes, absolutely. It's scheduled. Yep. Yeah, we're scheduled for next
I mean,
Wednesday.
we don't have,
I advertised it as an open meeting. And
Oh,
on the agenda,
that
it
was-
says
okay.
mayor's gonna close the meeting at 8:45.
that was my question. Thank you.
So our first interview is at 8:45.
That's,
Oh.
yes, that's on the,
He should be getting something out to tell us that who's gonna be here, how's that gonna go, because like you just mentioned, there could be a portion of the interview where the formal part that he's asking questions. So if there's questions that we are allowed to make, that can become the informal process as well, without interfering with the meeting in itself.
Andy, you're on. And Andy did go over this with me about right before the meeting. But Andy, give an update here real quick.
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, so we have the candidates coming in. The first one will be, the first interview with the board is 8:45, but I do have each candidate coming in about half an hour earlier to do a pre-test competency test. I went over that with the mayor this morning. We'll have them come in HR to do the pre-test. Then we'll bring them over to the board. The first person will be there at 8:45. And then the board will have an hour to interview that candidate. The next candidate will be coming in at 9:15, same kind of routine. They'll be coming in. Danielle will bring them into the HR department, do the competency test, and bring them to M&C room. So we have one scheduled at 8:45, 9:45, and 10:45 to finish at 11:45 a.m. to give the board a little break before the 12 o'clock meeting. And then our final candidate would be Nicole there. And she's one of the candidates, and she's going to be at the end after the 12 o'clock meeting in a closed session.
Any questions for?
So the questions and the answer, how are you going to proceed initially when you begin the process? I know it'd be, I guess, you, Louis, and whoever at one point, and you're going to be asking questions, particularly those that pertain to the operation of the finance director. Then if there are questions for us, we should have those prior to or what have you, and knowing what questions we can ask. I mean, they're all important, they're all tied together, but you want to separate us from you at that point, is what I'm saying.
So I shared with the mayor a questions that could be asked as suggestions. As the mayor mentioned, if you want, I could ask the questions on behalf of the board, and the board can ask follow-up questions, or the board can simply ask the questions. But I have I have a booklet for each one of you here in the department. If you'd like to stop in before next Wednesday, and I can go over it with each one of you individually, like I did the mayor, so that to prepare you. I can also email you ahead of time, and I was planning to anyway. But there are certain questions that are set up again, I could ask on behalf of the board, myself or the town administrator, and then the board can ask follow-up questions, or the board can just take the lead and ask all the questions that are outlined as suggested questions.
But you're the person in charge, so what are you suggesting? We're not coming in and take your job because that's your responsibility. However, we still can input questions that we may have according to the questions on your list.
Correct. I mean, I'm comfortable with asking the questions on behalf of the board and suggesting follow-up questions because I've been interviewing for 28 years. So, but I'll defer to the board to make the final decision.
Yeah, well, I feel comfortable. I think the board's gonna feel comfortable that you're gonna ask the questions. We're gonna be here and we'll do the follow-up and you laid out a pretty good manual. And I think once the board sees the manual, I think they're gonna be, they're gonna see what I saw. So it'll be pretty good.
But what's the manual for? What's in the manual?
It has a
Information on
checklist.
the candidates.
Wait a minute, 3 people talking,
Well,
Louis.
what I'm trying to tell you.
No, Louis, I just answered the question. Hold it. You got him talking, you talk. What's in the manual? That's all I asked.
Okay, Commissioner Gibbons, may I say?
Is there a problem with that?
No, not at all. So,
Good.
right, each manual has a job description for the position. Each manual has the candidate's cover letter and their resume, and also there's also the questions. And I've also created a profile sheet, kind of like a summary of each person's extracted from the information they provided with the resume as a cover sheet. It's separated into 4 different sections for each candidate. And then there's also a scorecard for each of the candidates. And then there's also at the end a memo that each member of the board can fill out and circle their first choice to their 4th choice after all the interviews are completed. So everything's pretty much laid out to make it as easy as possible, so you can just focus on really get to know the candidates, and hopefully you feel comfortable with you have the board agrees upon the one candidate that they can recommend for the town administrator to consider hiring.
Okay, fine. That makes sense. And Louis, I have done the same thing in my life too, but I wanted to find out exactly what's happening. Also, before I close, I guess you're going to provide, and I think I mentioned to you before, after the interview, the candidate himself or herself may have questions that they want to ask you or the town of Elkton about the position. Yes,
Commissioner. I'm suggesting that the question portion of the interview lasts, about 30 minutes, 30 to 40 minutes, and then the remaining time would be the candidate asking us questions. Okay, thanks. That's all I asked. Thank you, sir. Difficult. Thank you.
Very good. Anyone else have anything to say? Meeting? Alicia?
Jean asked me something a few minutes ago, and I figured I'd make the formal announcement that the Elkton Alliance Survivor event, the fundraiser, our very first fundraiser in 27 years, is being canceled, officially being canceled. We found out that there was another organization that was doing one that was identical to ours 2 weeks prior to us, and so we did not feel it would make a whole lot of sense to carry on with our event. So we're looking at other fundraising opportunities.
Yeah, it's a shame.
Very good. Meeting's adjourned.
Thanks.